Welcome to the Talent Magnet Podcast, a podcast that dives deep into strategies through interviews, insightful data, and real-life storytelling to ensure your company is a magnet for talented people needed to drive the future of your organization. And we have fun. Here is your host, the CEO of Accelery, Lenwood Ross.
Sam, welcome to the program. I'm so glad to have you.
Thank you, Lenwood. I'm thrilled to be here and excited to be talking to my good friend.
That's right. Now, full disclosure, Sam and I go way back. You got to get a way back machine. We go way back. We went to college together, so we've known each other for a very long time. So Sam, tell us a little bit about yourself and also about your company.
Yeah, happy to, Lenwood. So on the professional track, I'm an accidental entrepreneur. In grad school, I studied social policy and religious ethics. And the combination of that was intended to be a career in public service. And so I got into studying how not-for-profits and government programs help people develop skills and to land good jobs. And so I got interested in workforce development. And after grad school, I thought about ways I might apply my skills. And there were things like, joining a not-for-profit or a government agency. But around that time, I met a fellow entrepreneur who was building a business in online learning. And so I thought, well, that sounds like fun. So I'm going to try that. And fast forward, we built a successful corporate learning professional services business that helped companies build and deliver and manage their major learning solutions. And we sold that to Xerox in 2015 and then launched our collaborative learning software business, which is a SaaS business that I run today. And we sold that to VitalSource in 2017. And I remain as part of the VitalSource team running that business, which focuses on collaborative learning that helps organizations solve their big, hairy, audacious, mission-critical challenges through engaging, collaborative, and applied learning at scale.
Okay, that's fascinating. All right. The story is fascinating and what you're doing is fascinating. Obviously I'm a big believer in learning and the platform. So I really want to get into kind of the way that people think about learning, right? Sort of traditionally. And where learning is today and where it's going, at least in the most innovative companies, because you're working with some of the most innovative companies in the world. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, there's been this shift over the last couple of decades. And, I've been fortunate to have a front row seat into this evolution of online learning and digital learning. And at first it was really about compliance. The first tools in online learning, the first one, learning management system, was called Registrar. And that gives you a sense of what the way that online learning was conceived was about registering people in classes, right? And so that was kind of one wave. And, then we got into catalogs of e-learning and that sort of thing. And only now, maybe in the last 5 years or so, are we really looking at learning experiences and thinking about the way people learn socially online, the way we build skills online through application, and also the way that we're really going after trying to solve those big mission critical challenges versus the kind of the check the box compliancy learning to keep you out of jail, or the catalogs of online learning that are thrown out by employers to check a box as an employee benefit. What we're really interested in and where I think learning has a true promise is in being a lever for transformation to help solve those big challenges.
That's awesome. Very fascinating. Obviously, transformation top of mind for, most organizations. If you're not thinking about transformation, forget about thinking about transformation. You need to be actively engaged in transformation. And when we're talking about transformation, we're not talking just about like implementing some IT solution, right? Because a lot of times when people think about transformation, they're thinking about systems, information technology, SaaS applications. But when you're talking about transformation, you're talking about the people side of it, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. And as a starting point, we used to think about transformation or change as something kind of separate from the business, or digital as in the technology space. Well, look, every business is being transformed by digital today. We got auto companies that are being transformed to be EVs. You've got financial services companies that are trying to figure out sustainable investing and and every company is becoming a marketplace. I mean, just a couple of days ago, Lenwood, I found the Airbnb of boats to get a boat for the day to go take my family on Lake Washington. Like, so anyone can start a business and create a marketplace. So this transformation everywhere. I think that's kind of a really key point. Is just, we see it everywhere.
Yeah.
And the way that so with this transformation, organizations need to change, people need to change. The World Economic Forum estimates that 50% of employees will need to reskill, like change their fundamental skills by 2025. So over a few years. Yeah. So individuals have to accelerate their ability to learn and their ability to keep pace and to change. And organizations like auto changing their entire product line need to adapt constantly and in hugely high stakes ways. So it makes sense that the most sophisticated organizations are going to really think through, how do I thoughtfully design learning experiences? Because this change is here. It's not like it's coming, it's here. And how do I transform my business through my people to maximize and take advantage of this change?
Yeah, that is fascinating. So there was two things that you said that really stood out to me. The first thing you said is, when organizations thought about learning before, it was kind of like off to the side.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's in the flow, right, of what people are doing on a daily basis. Did I catch that?
That's
correctly?
Right. That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of off to the side. Learning was kind of a compliance thing or a soft employee benefit thing. But now learning leaders have the opportunity. I'm not saying they all are there.
Right.
They have the opportunity to be the change driver, like right at the center of driving change. It's not just the technology leader. It's like, how do you make sense and how do you enable people with certainly technology skills, but a whole vast range of business challenges that learning can be this critical lever for. Things like culture transformation. We've had the privilege of working with Microsoft on helping Satya Nadella drive learning at scale around building a growth mindset. So that's kind of core to the philosophy of the business and to building a culture. Over the last few years, we've seen organizations awaken to taking seriously investments in diversity, inclusion, and belonging. Another extremely important culture transformation that learning leaders can be at the center of. Others would be like enabling the success of a merger and acquisition. So many mergers and acquisitions fail for cultural reasons, for lack of enablement, for lack of taking advantage of the synergy that the bankers identify. Then someone has to go make that happen, and that there's learning there. And then things like leadership development. It turns out that these kind of culture transformations and merger and acquisition actually require really good leadership, right? So
surprise,
surprise, yeah, bingo, right? So, I mean, how do you do that at scale? How do you do that in a way that's not just, you know, the C-suite kind of coming up with brilliant ideas and then saying, you know, just stepping away from it? You actually have to enable those strategies and enable leadership development to make those things happen.
And when you're talking about learning and bringing learning into the flow of work, and you're talking about, you know, it's skills, not so much technical skills, but it is skills. But isn't there a sort of like getting people to learn how to learn from their work?
Yeah.
Like that is so important, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is where the old models and honestly kind of current models fall short. So there is, especially people who come outside of learning into learning. Oftentimes there's a thought that was like, oh, it's just like YouTube. It's just, you know, this is just another digital form of content distribution.
Right.
Well, we're awash in content. Good content, bad content. You don't have to go very far to find digital content, right? But that's where, you know, confusing the distribution of content with learning is a fundamental mistake. Learning is about practice. It's about application. It's about trying new things. It's about connecting it to your work, to your context. It's about collaboration with others. You work in teams. You learn in teams. These things go together. So that's one way we think at my company, Intrepid. We think about in the flow slightly differently. In the flow, I think the last few years by folks like Josh Burson and stuff is kind of meant to be like almost like performance support. Like you sort of need a nugget of learning or a YouTube video or a short lesson like at the moment of need, which is great. That's fantastic, right? Kind of performance support. We think of it as, in the flow is like connecting it to your work.
Yes.
Practicing it, actually doing something with it, building that account plan, practicing how to give difficult feedback with someone. It's the application and the practice. That's where the real magic is in the flow, we think.
Yeah, I love it. And I happen to agree with you. There is a significant benefit apart from the content that's being learned associated with the process of how you're learning. That's critical for creative thinking. And that creative thinking is central to the transformation that people need to make in organizations, right? So it's about, I won't say getting comfortable with uncertainty, but being able to adapt in the face of uncertainty, right?
Yeah, and what you said about learning how to learn, Lenwood, it's so fundamental. Maybe it's because, we're a couple of recovering liberal arts, grads ourselves, and we geek out on this kind of stuff. But it seems like the fundamental meta skill. And sometimes, and you talked about skills earlier, sometimes I think we've so overcorrected on the technical that in the skill building, there's like a boot camp for everything. There's a boot camp for product management, a boot camp for customer success. And of course, there's boot camp for coding. I mean, my God, like they're everywhere. But it's something I wonder that when you take someone who is, learning very specific skills, what happens when those skills meet their shelf life? Like,
right.
There needs to be the ability to continue learning. And so that seems to be, not that those technical skills aren't critical, of course they are. But it's like there's a meta skill that needs to be nurtured to move on to what's next, after that.
Absolutely. It's so important, especially because the business cycle, right? It's accelerating so much.
Yeah.
And so what you really need in your organization are people who can adapt. They can learn how to do new things very quickly. I mean, you could wake up tomorrow in a thriving business with a huge market share and find a competitor from a different industry. Right? That's the new thing is the competitors, they're not just in your industry, they can pop up from another industry overnight.
Yeah.
Right? One day you're it's a big security company, whether it's Sloman Shield or one of these
ADT.
companies.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Of. And then, one day all you're worried about is Sloman's. And then the next thing you know, Amazon buys Ring, and now you're competing against Amazon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that is the very practical, real world that we're living in. And you cannot, number one, trying to recruit a whole host of new talent to compete in not only in this environment, but the cost is totally impractical.
Yep.
I mean, it's just anyway. So
totally.
learning is it is central to what organizations need to start doing. I mean, if you're not looking at it strategically,
that's right.
Today, you are behind.
That's right. That's
You're
right.
Behind, right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that one is there's a great example, a story we tell about a client that's really like right down the center, what you just described. So especially this part of transforming your workforce and asking yourself like, okay, they don't have the skills I need today. What do I do? Like, do I just reset and find tens of thousands of new people? Well, no. Like, I mean, and this, if it's helpful, I could share an example.
Yeah, absolutely do.
So Microsoft, going through their transformation to be a cloud company, and today we think, oh yeah, Microsoft, Azure, cloud company, of course, right? Well, 5 years ago, it was all about AWS. GCP wasn't even on the radar. And, you've got Microsoft, whose franchise, of course, is Windows and Office, sees the future and sees that it's all about the cloud, whether it's applications or cloud, hosting, storage, and so on. And so their sales team was used to selling licenses, kind of a perpetual license, this traditional software model. They didn't know how or didn't have much experience selling cloud solutions, which is a totally different value proposition, and it shows up in a different place in your customer's P&L, and you're having different conversations about support, and honestly, you're not even talking to the CIO anymore. Now you're talking to a line business leader. So this massive change hitting them. And so they realized that their sellers needed to, really kind of be fundamentally reskilled so that they could have business conversations with business leaders and really, really kind of map the solutions to various lines of business in different industries. And so they thought, to your point about what do we do? Like, do we just get a bunch of Accenture people in here as salespeople? And so they just decided, like, no, we're really going to invest heavily in our people, and they created what they called a cloud mini MBA with a series of programs that reskilled and really fundamentally reskilled their people in things like negotiating at the C-suite and business strategy and financial acumen, and all these just fundamental skills they need to have. And to our earlier conversation, they didn't do it the old way by just pumping out content. Right. They did it in a way that yes, introduced new principles, but challenged the salesperson to apply those to their top accounts or their accounts they're going after, and build account plans in the flow of work, and then go and execute those. So just it's always good to have tangible examples of these concepts that we're talking about. Yeah.
Well, that's a great example. I think it's definitely one that people can relate to. Obviously, Microsoft is a household name. I personally think that the Microsoft transformation, even though it has been talked about in the media, I think it's I don't think it's talked about. I mean, they turn that, and not that it's, a perfect organization, but they are competitive where they previously were not. They had significant culture issues that needed to be overcome. And there is no arguing with the increase in the share price of that organization over Satya's tenure.
Absolutely.
And he has focused on people like nobody's business. The other thing that I would like to emphasize, which you didn't really emphasize as much, but I want to emphasize it, is that Intrepid was really a big part of what they were doing, right?
Thank you, Lenwood.
Yeah, you guys really, in terms of building the platform and really figuring out how do you get a lot of people to change their behavior quickly?
Yeah.
You're modest.
No, I mean, you're right. I was telling the story, but we partnered with what in that case was a series of business schools to really create this new learning model and use the world's best content from INSEAD and London Business School and Wharton, and then marry that with a fantastic delivery that wasn't just about content, but was about practice, was about collaboration. And I mean, the results, speak for themselves. We had thousands of account plans created. We had 99% satisfaction. And then INSEAD actually did a study, went back and looked at the sales impact, and they attributed $1.4 billion in sales revenue to skills that were learned in the first year of the program. So,
Wow.
We felt great about that, and it's why Microsoft remains one of our biggest customers today, and why the company chose to use the platform to drive programs around growth mindset, and which is core to Satya Nadella's transformation. So we just feel so privileged to have a partner like that to work with, the real innovator, a company that gets it. And that you don't have to explain it twice, and sometimes they're a couple steps ahead of you, they're leading you along. So, it's been a real privilege.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that is underappreciated is the benefits that your other customers get. New customers, the other customers get from the things that Microsoft has done.
Yes.
By working with you guys. You guys are not just technologists, but you really understand how to make this happen, how to make this successful in organizations. And I mean, obviously, I can't say enough.
Thank you.
And I'm a big fan of yours too, Sam. Sam, what other before we sign off here, what other kind of practical advice could you give, or anything you want to emphasize about collaborative learning? What would you want people to know that is really critical in terms of their thinking about learning and how to accomplish this transformation thing?
Yeah, great question. I would say, first, it's all about focusing on the right problems. And as a business leader or learning leader or transformation leader, your time is so precious. And it's really being intentional about which problems are worth solving. And I think, for learning leaders who have things coming at them from all different parts of the organization, that's just so key. And, sometimes people ask, like, well, what makes a good chief learning officer? And what makes them successful in culture transformation? Honestly, I think it's about having a really strong business partner. And it's not it's not a mystery why Microsoft has been successful, and you named it. It's they have a great leader.
Yeah.
And so it's find that problem that's on the CEO's agenda and having that person enlist them as your champion. So that's one. I think also it's like focusing on what matters for your learners. How do you make sure that your solutions you're providing are intensely relevant to them, not just for their personal career development objectives, but how do you help them with solutions that help them get their current work done and advance their career? It's kind of your Venn diagram of what the organization needs and what the individual needs. And that's where you want to really be targeted. And I think it's about designing for maximum engagement, application, and collaboration, and resist the temptation to be, another fire hose of content. Content is in service of skill building, not the other way around. And that is just a classic mistake that is made over and over and over again. And then finally, I think something that we've learned from our client at Microsoft, you got to be a great marketer. You can have great sponsorship, you can have great design, you can have great focus on something that's relevant to the learner, but you still got to market it. You still got to be a master at selling the value and staying in front of the learner and reminding them of why it's powerful and interesting. Even, maybe even use a few marketing tricks, like, create some false scarcity around this. Like, hey, you've been chosen for this program. You're special. Like, it's okay. Like, use the best marketing expertise that you've got and share the highlights and communicate and engage. So those are some of the things we've learned along the way.
Yeah, and those are great learnings, great things that you've shared with me in the past, and that we've shared with other people, and certainly any new customers would get the benefit of that too. You mentioned Sajid first, and I want to just say it's a paraphrase of what he said. He said he sees his role as creating the culture for everyone to thrive in doing the things that they need to do.
It's
brilliant.
It's so key. And we were pretty excited when he joined the organization. And one of the first things he said is he wanted to build a learn it all culture.
Yeah.
Not a know it all culture. And it's like, oh, wow, this is cool.
This is going to get interesting, right?
Yeah.
You got excited. Well, that's awesome. Hey, thank you so much, Sam, for coming on. I'm going to have you come on again because there's more we could have talked about, but this was brilliant.
Awesome. Thanks, Lenwood.